That conversation I promised you earlier on, the former competition commissioner, Tembinkosi Bonakele, has left the building, but his work over the years will probably follow him. He's been with the South African Competition Commission for the past 18 years. He joins me now to reflect on the long career he's had in the commission and what's next in store for him. Of course, we say 18 years, Tembinkosi Bonakele. For starters, we say you've left the building and entered our building. Welcome, and thank you for talking to me. 18 years at the Competition Commission, but I suppose where I want to start with reflections is the period where, you know, we came to know of you even more as Competition Commissioner. What for you were the highlights of this particular period?
Thanks for inviting me. It was quite a busy time, so it's very difficult to summarize it. But I suppose we were responsive to consumers. This has really been the, consumer interests. You'll recall during COVID-19, we dealt with pricing abuses of the so-called price gouging on things that were essential at that time, PPE, pricing of the test kits for COVID-19. This followed also our intervention, which was also in the consumer interest, in tackling data prices following data must fall complaints and submissions to us. So that's been one theme. The second theme has been to open up markets. We've done a lot of work to encourage and promote entry by SMMEs, by black people in various industries where the barriers to entry have been so high. So we've tackled supermarkets, so eNCA, the eNCA tenants in supermarkets, in shopping malls, the big supermarket groups would enter into exclusive agreements with landlords, preventing SMMEs from operating in shopping malls. All of that we've been able to dismantle now. In the auto sector is another example where the arrangements, warranties, insurance, and in-service plans used to force people to go back to the dealerships and particular repairers for maintaining cars. All of that now we have dismantled, so consumers are now free to go to workshops of their choice.
And we will go through some of these major investigations, and the good thing is that you've been involved in most of them, big investigations that we know of that the Competition Commission has undertaken. You have been involved in one way or another. But let's talk about the institution itself. As you leave, how do you leave the Competition Commission? What are you proud of in terms of, you know, leaving your stamp in how it does its work?
I mean, we've learned in South Africa that institutions matter quite a lot for our society, for our democracy. And I leave a very healthy Competition Commission that is able to play its role. This is probably the proudest legacy I leave behind.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say a bit more about it.
well, I can say...
For instance, around issues of investigation, turnaround time, and also capacity, for example, and budgets and the likes, you know, sustainability of the organization.
That's right. I mean, when I mean the institution is fine, perhaps I'm being modest. I mean, I leave behind a very well-managed institution with a very stable management team, something which we should not take for granted. 4 years in a row, clean audits, we manage our affairs well, but also that's got credibility in the eyes of the public and stakeholders. We are trusted, we're seeing more and more consumers complaining to us, policymakers coming to us for advice, even the private sector itself, companies coming to us for guidance. So I think that we have established this institution as a key player in economic management of the country.
Yeah, and there was never a point where there was mandate confusion or perhaps lack of understanding and clarity. And the context of me asking this is that it's really, and I don't want to be unfair to your predecessor or predecessors, it's really over the last while that we've been dealing with the big investigations that many of us started paying closer attention to, saying, what is the Competition Commission? It's a creature of statute. What do they do that is different from the Competitions Tribunal? So I'm just wondering if there was ever any issues of the mandate of the Commission, at least from those who are inside the Commission. I don't imagine there were.
Well, no, not from inside the Commission. But remember, the Commission has been active in a variety of sectors, including regulated sectors, where there are regulators there. So
banking is an example.
Banking is an example. Telecommunications is an example. So this issue is always there. I mean, there are fights about jurisdiction all the time with private players who assert that the Commission has no mandate to deal with a particular problem in a particular regulated sector.
Yeah.
So those things, fortunately, have been ironed out over time. The courts have asserted that the Commission has a much wider jurisdiction. Where there are other regulators, it does have concurrent jurisdiction. And we've invested a lot in relationships with those sector regulators. So I think the mandate is fairly clear.
Yeah.
But, you know, people will always take a point whenever convenient.
Don't be modest when answering this, Tembinkosi Bonakele, because I've established that you do have this tendency to hold back in your modesty. But what is it about you that led you down this path? You are an admitted attorney, and you used to be in practice, but I don't think that's enough. There needs to be something, because if you think about it, you become the champion of the consumer, responsible for dealing with the known and the unknown abuses, because some of these abuses we never would have known about had it not been for the work of the Commission.
I think that, you know, there's a whole generation of us who have been conscientized to see ourselves as servants of the people. And for me, this sort of has tended to be around issues of social justice, socio-economic justice, and I see the law as an instrument for promoting that cause. And of course, there's a whole history into this. I'm a child of the transition, so I come from a highly politicized background, just like you would, given the time that we happen to have been born at. I was born in 1976. So that has, I suppose, always been my birthmark, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I find myself being so much involved in social transformation issues.
Now, back to the investigations and other issues that you've been at the helm of in the last while. Did you tend to focus more on the competition and collusion type of activity, cartels, because you are credited, for example, with establishing the cartels unit within the Commission, to the detriment of the other work that the Commission is supposed to be undertaking, overseeing mergers and acquisitions and ensuring that the public interest is served when Company A takes over Company B, and perhaps your focus not necessarily being really on the ball as far as that area of your work is concerned?
Actually, I think that our approach has been quite balanced. So we've blocked more major transactions during my term than the Commission has ever done in its whole period of existence. This is not a record I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah.
But there are sectors where there is a problem in South Africa of high concentration, and I think we have even produced a study so that it provides context for our interventions and for other possible policy interventions. So we have focused on measures not only on competition issues, in other words, the establishment of monopolies as a result of measures, but we've looked broadly at inclusivity. So the issue of employment, which is a key issue in South Africa. What is the impact of a measure on SMMEs? What is the impact of measures on BEE? All of these things are in the spotlight now.
In fact, you preempt my next question to you. It was going to be exactly that. Yeah. I read on News 24 the voices of some experts who are criticizing you, the Competition Commission, and saying that you seem to focus on black representation as one score. I mean, it's an important score, but there are other measures, measures that they're saying you're simply not paying enough attention to when it comes to mergers of companies. You just look at black representation in the outcome of the merger, and you either approve or you don't approve, but other measures you don't take into account. Sure.
But you and I now agree that we don't just look at cartels. Of course, cartels are important. We can talk about them if you have time. But this area of measures is very strategic in that it's about how to fix markets moving forwards. Primarily we have focused on competition. I mean, we've blocked, the majority of transactions in South Africa have been blocked because they are establishing a market power position for the merging parties, by far the majority. In fact, the only time that we blocked a transaction as a result of BEE was the Burger King transaction. And that transaction, ultimately, the issue was settled between us and the merging parties, and it was also approved subject to certain conditions. Yeah. But what it did very well was to educate the public, not just the public, actually, even experts as well as representatives of companies, that this issue is a part of our law. In other words, looking at the impact of transactions on BEE. And it's been very helpful in that respect.
I've been told I've got 3 more minutes with you, so let's try a rapid-fire approach. The construction cartels. What will you say to someone who will say that, Tembinkosi Bonakele, you're a softie, you were too soft on the construction cartels? Instead of hitting them with the book of the law, you basically allowed them to plead out and reach settlements that they didn't even feel in their pockets.
No, actually, some people will say that you find them out of existence, because some of those companies did collapse. Of course, not just because of our fines, because of other factors, the economic slowdown and so on. But what we did, more than the fines that go to the public purse, was to dismantle the construction cartel, which had operated over decades. And that in itself, I think, is quite important.
Right.
But those fines, when we didn't just levy fines, by the way, as part of the transformation of that sector, promoting new entry, because what makes cartels possible is that you have a few participants. So if you massify participation, and so part of the settlement with the state, which was the primary victim of the cartel, was to open up that sector and to get them to finance and fund the entry of their competitors.
After cartel, the bread cartel. That hit really at the, it doesn't get more appalling than that, bread on the table. Your reflections on that?
Correct. It was a very important case that showed how far things could go. And the importance of a competition agency like this. And those cases, by the way, they are the ones who also now made us recognize the importance of the Constitution in doing this work. So the right to basic things such as food, healthcare, education, you are seeing now that the approach of the Competition Commission is to expand access into those rights. We recently had a measure where we blocked a transaction on the basis that it was going to restrict access to private healthcare.
Yeah. Lastly, and we could go through all of this because we've had cartels and collusion over so many of these issues. And by the way, there's criticism when you say collusion because people want us to spell it out that it is corruption, which it absolutely is. But I think we are using the language of the statute that establishes you and your powers, the Competition Commission. As we go forward, are the laws inadequate, leading to the situation that you and I could sit here until late evening, talking about the bread cartel, construction cartel, the beef cartel. Now, as you leave, there's an investigation into insurance companies and allegations of collusion there, and so on and so forth. Are the laws weak, or does the institution that monitors that enforcement, as well as the tribunal itself, is there more that needs to be done there to support the institution and the tribunal?
For sure. On cartels, there is law that makes cartels criminal. And we've not had anybody going to prison for engaging in cartels. In part,
does that fall on you?
Because we have to resolve the issue of how to prosecute cartels properly in South Africa. The issue of coordination between the competition authorities and the NPA, which has a constitutional mandate to prosecute cartel, I think is one of the critical things that we didn't manage to implement, but that must be implemented.
Yeah, because someone will say you could have laid a charge and left it to the police and the NPA.
We have.
Yeah.
The point, though, is that it's much more complex than that. There is a lot of interagency issues that have to be ironed out. There's an issue of prioritization and so on. But that's a package for the future.
All right. And I'm completely out of time, Tembinkosi Bonakele. Dare I ask where you're off to next? I imagine that because of the work you've done and who you are, you will not pop up somewhere that will cause a conflict of interest with your current, your immediate past position. That's just my imagination.
No, for sure. Your imagination is spot on. They have sent me to do the so-called garden. So I'm on garden leave for the next 6 months, and I'll figure out what to do next.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time and joining me here on eNCA. Tembinkosi Bonakele, the outgoing competition commissioner, engaging in conversation with me and reflecting on his tenure at the Competition Commission.